Excel is an excellent tool for organizing and analyzing data. One of the big values you have is you can put your data in and then use formulas and functions to do the calculations, as opposed to having to do them yourselves. But one of the big things that students have trouble with consistently is understanding the difference between a relative cell reference and an absolute cell reference. This is a very important distinction to keep in mind. So we have here a chart of various information for this gift shop. An inventory of items, how many of these items we have on hand, how much they cost, and how much they retail for. So if we wanted to find out how much the total retail value for each item is, we would of course multiply the quantity times the retail price. So we would create a formula in this first field. And we're going to just create that formula. So it's equal. Remember, formulas always start with equals. Quantity, we can just click that, times, and then our price. We click it, and there it is. Now, one of the nice things is, though, if I wanted to do each one of these items, I could sit there and I could, by hand, create each formula. However, I don't need to. Rather, I can highlight my formula again, and using the fill handle, just drag this down. And notice I get the quantities for each of my items here. How does this work? Well, because it's using a relative cell reference. So this formula says B4 times D4. This is an E4. What this really means is the formula says go over 1, 2, 3 columns, the B column, and multiply that by go over 1 column to the D column. So multiply this by this. And that's great. And so I have it. So when I copy it down, my next row automatically says go over 3 and multiply by 1, and so forth. If I continue on down, this will end up showing me the quantity times the retail price. So that's using the relative cell reference. This way, it just automatically says stay on the same line and multiply these two cells. And as I move down, it will continue to do that. Now, as you remember, if I want to get a total of the column, I can either create a formula that says this plus this plus this plus this plus this, or I can use my AutoSum function. Right here, notice the Greek sigma. It's a mathematical symbol for summation. And click that, automatically will find the cells with numbers on top of it and give me a total. Okay, so that's all well and good. Now if I want to get the percentage of total retail value, this is $40,000. What percent of the retail value of $302,000 does this represent? Well, to get that kind of thing, you're just going to take the amount and divide it by the total. And that will tell me what percent this makes up. So equals that divided by the total. And I get 0.1335. Well, let's turn this into a percentage right here. So we're going to click our percentage. And I want to increase my decimal point a couple of places so I get a real good percentage. 13.36% is the hair care duo products out of the total. So it's worth some of the money, but not necessarily the bulk of it. Now I need to do that for each one of these values. So, of course, what I do is I grab my fill handle and I drag it on down. Doesn't work, does it? Why? Because it's a relative cell reference. So when I copy this formula down to the next row, the formula that's created says go over 1, so in the same row, and then divide that by go over 1 and go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Because that's what we had here. This was go over 1 and go over 1 and down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So with relative cell reference, when I went to the next cell, it did the same thing. Go over 1 and down 7. Well, there's nothing there. The same with the next row. Go over 1 and go down 7. So I'm constantly dividing by no value here. What I have to do is I have to lock down so it's always dividing by $302,344.45. There's two ways I can do that. First of all, I could say E4 divided by, and then type in 302, 344.45. All well and good, except the minute I realized, oh, I typed in a retail price wrong, or I missed a box of shower kits and the quantity goes up, my total goes up. And so my formula then becomes useless. Or worse than useless, it becomes wrong. So what I have to do is I have to say, always divide the one row over by this specific cell. We have to turn this relative cell reference into an absolute cell reference. To create an absolute cell reference, all we have to do is click in the formula bar, and before the denominator, the number we're dividing by, before the letter, you're just going to simply put in a dollar sign. That dollar sign doesn't have any relationship to money. It is just a symbol. And then before the number, you put in a dollar sign. So what we've now done is we've now locked down row E, column E, locked down row 11, this specific cell. And hit enter. Notice my number doesn't change because I haven't changed how anything is being calculated other than it's going to set to this value. Now we drag this on down and I start to get my numbers. And let's just pick this one, OJ Night Cream. Now it's going to be this cell. Go over 1 into this cell and divide it by my total. It does not change. In fact, if you want to see proof of this, drag it down one more. You'll see this is that divided by itself, and it'll be 100%. We don't want that, so we're going to get rid of that. For some reason, absolute cell reference is something that students have a lot of problems with. And all you need to remember is all you're doing is locking it down with the dollar signs. You will only, in this kind of thing, you generally will only lock down the denominator. Don't change the numerator because you want to let it change as you drag and copy. But you want to lock down your denominator. So what you do in order to create that is just like I did. Create your original formula, that divided by that. Then go back and edit it to lock that on down once you know that's a problem. And then copy it on and you will be all set.